So recently there's been a lot of gacha games coming out that have been obviously kind of taking over the space at the moment and have been, the big discussion between a lot of players. And this is all obviously coinciding with all the other gacha games out, including Wuthering Waves, who are releasing their updates. And obviously after people finishing playing those updates, then they go and play some of the newer gacha games which are out, including one called Chaos Zero Nightmare, which has been very popular. You guys have probably heard about that. And well, a lot of Wuthering Waves fans have actually been talking about this recently and discussing whether the issue that they've got going on at the moment is something similar to what Wuthering Waves has been trying to avoid, which I thought was a very interesting conversation to be having. And as you can see here, this is a post over on, WuWa Unfiltered, saying, is the CZN fiasco a perfect example of what Wuthering Waves has been avoiding since launch? Now, obviously, they talk about some of the developer notes that come out with the game. If you guys haven't seen them, it's pretty crazy. They say, they would like to address the story-related concerns. They say, characters build deeper bonds with other characters instead of the protagonist was a clear mistake on our part. And they say, characters that previously sparked controversy will be revised. The story will be rebuilt around the captain, the sole protagonist. They say, long story short, character interacts with each other. Players don't like you. Devs listen, removes the said interactions, players don't like it, overall players just don't like it, which obviously, yeah, it's quite funny. They say, oh, also they're going full racist in the main sub at the moment, which is also pretty insane. And people say against Korean players, was it? The sub is mental. And yeah, there's been a lot of kind of people at other people's throats and things over the situation, because many are blaming it obviously on the Korean kind of community apparently, and also some other communities too. Apparently they're saying it's like one particular group of people that are really pushing for these changes, and this is what Chaos Zero Nightmare are listening to, which I do think is pretty insane. And obviously it is a pretty big topic. I mean, I don't think I've seen any kind of backlash like this for a long time, right? And people say more context. Korean people said they'd be mad because in Korean translation chapter 4 there'd be a section where MC got shot, but all females only care about is Owen and worried about him while MC was bleeding to death, and got more shipping moments with Renoa, the main heroine in CZN, more than MC. The point is there was a lot of shipping moments, and MC only got the humiliation ritual according to them. So yeah, obviously they're essentially feeling like, they kind of got cucked in the game, right? Due to the fact that the MC isn't getting all of the attention, which, might be a controversial opinion, but I think that's pretty good. It's pretty interesting. It's something a little bit different in terms of the story, because again, I don't think a main character should be, always the one that is the center of attention. Sometimes it is interesting to mix it up and maybe have a lot of the cast not care about them, and obviously maybe build up that kind of care over time. You never know, but obviously people say Lamau, there's a big yikes there. Remember the KR effers who got beefed when a female character did some pinch fingers as well. Obviously, if you don't know, that's a symbol. Obviously, people say like small dick, which obviously I thought was pretty interesting. And yeah, people said, someone here replying to this, to the actual initial question of, is this a perfect example of what we were trying to evolve? They said, to put it simply, yes, this is what WuWa has avoided from its CBT era. I played only the prologue in CZN, and while the gameplay and premise does attract me a little, the MC is disappointing to say the least. The opening was well made in terms of quality, and even the OST was great. All that said, it was quite mid in terms of the MC involvements, mainly due to them practically being a walking cameraman. And not to mention being saved by another more powerful male character at the end, and said male character is well acquainted with the other cast of characters, including female ones, makes a bitter taste for any male love players. They say this makes those players feel misled with the game and story direction, and the rest of what happens. My personal opinion is the devs and the producers of CZN are not stupid enough to bend their knee on minorities' demands. They have their data and statistics on who spends and who plays the game the most. They have a vision for the game, but clashed with the audience they attracted. So instead of letting go of some of the revenue, they decided to make the changes to better suited to satisfy those players. I don't blame the devs for the change, but it is quite unexpected for them to do a WuWa route with their story. And yeah, if you don't know, obviously, why people are referring to WuWa so much, obviously, some people might be a little bit angry, be like, oh my god, why are you constantly bringing up WuWa? No, this is actually very, very relevant, because obviously, Wuthering Waves actually changed their story during the CBT, and that obviously changed it to what we know today. And I think, honestly, they did a good job. I think Wuthering Waves did a good job. I don't really remember too much of the original story itself and how different it was. But again, it has been a great story for me, at least. So I feel like, you know, they did a pretty decent job. Now, there has been holes in it. There has 100% been some problems that some people have been having. For example, the male character, or not the male character, the main character, constantly being the center of a lot of stuff. I know obviously people had their own gripes with that and everything like that, but to be fair, I do think it is still a pretty decent story, and I don't think the changing of the story has changed much, right? But also, I do think it is important to kind of note here that I don't think Chaos Zero Nightmares in a beta, right? I think the game is just launched, and yeah, maybe this is exactly a perfect example of what WuWa has been avoiding, because they did it before launch, whereas now Chaos Zero Nightmare has the kind of hard decision to obviously go through and change things after the game is already out. They said, I wouldn't mind if it was part of the narrative, hero's journey, good old classic structure, pretty much all good stories starting by facing failure, but honestly getting mad because the MC is saved by a Ryaju and male, and otaku slang for extroverted people that have no problem socializing or has a lover, and said MC is not an OP alpha, Gary's two ovaries imploder is by itself retarded. They said average relative fan behavior. I do get why people are mad, but I'm kind of pissed at it too now. I hope the writers can maneuver around it. I still can't get over how stale WuWa 1.0 and the 3 was in story times. They said, oh, that's not all actually. If you saw the other comments, chapter 4 as the other male of the group, I reckon Owen gets gets shot for protecting the MC. Unfortunately, this leads to the said male character getting more attention and care from the other female cast, making the bitter taste downright vomit-inducing for a game with affinity levels. Which, yeah, I think obviously if you are focusing on affinity levels and trying to build up your kind of rapport with some of these characters, then it can get pretty frustrating if the characters are constantly swooning over another one and not over the main character. But again, I don't know, maybe they were trying to cook with the story. Maybe it's one of those where you had to let it slow burn for a little bit so that they can have that redemption, and then one day obviously it will all just turn on its head. But again, I think that a lot of people are frustrated now, which is now obviously caused Chaos Zero Nightmare to go ahead and think about changing the story, which I do think is I think there's multiple things that are good and bad about it. If a lot of people have been speaking out against the story and been angry about it, then sure, I think they should change it, but obviously if that is only a small minority of people, then I don't think it is the best idea. And also, you got to consider that this game is out too. I think it could lose a lot of momentum. A lot of these gacha games run off momentum, right? Wuthering Waves, it had a ton of momentum. Tons of people getting behind it, and that's why it's so popular today, right? And the same with a lot of other games as well in the space, or even outside of the gacha space, right? I think momentum is a big key, and whenever you do things that change the story after release, it does kind of hurt that momentum a little bit, and people end up just kind of not really going to it or not really interacting with it, which I think is obviously a very important part to consider whenever it comes to these gacha games and making these kind of decisions, because there's been many games that have had terrible advertising, or maybe something went wrong, anything like that. They lose the momentum and then they go EOS in a couple of months. Now, I'm not saying that Chaos Zero Nightmare is going to go EOS. I'm sure that the kind of dev team can work on it and, obviously fix it, but it is still a very interesting kind of situation to see unfold, especially considering the context of what Wuthering Waves has been, doing with their release whenever they first launched. So again, I thought it was just an interesting conversation, and let me know down in the comments if you guys are playing Chaos Zero Nightmare. Very interested in how many of you guys are actually interested in this game. And yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to GameSubs, use my code KAZA, get 10% off. Again, they got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.